Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mrs. Readers Hanging Out with Mrs. Hammond. I think we've hung out a whole lot, haven't we? And I've enjoyed every moment of it. Hey, before I begin reading today, I have to shout out to uh, the Dangerfield Junior High School. Dangerfield has some great schools, and I don't want to leave Dangerfield Junior High out. Their principal is Mrs. Amy Billingsley. Very gracious, very kind. Love visiting with her. Also, when you walk into the junior high and you go into the office area, there is a receptionist or secretary. Not sure what Miss Marcy Pegues his title is. Probably she just takes care of the whole school. But she makes you feel so welcome when you walk in there. And she's always smiling. She's always calling you by your name. And I love to go into the office. I don't want to just go anywhere else first. I want to go into the office to visit with Mrs. Pegues. So a big shout out to her because I know that she takes care of you guys. Also, Mr. Brandon Darden, he teaches math there, and he is one of Mrs. Reader's readers. And of course, I'm going to shout out to him. He's amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Darden. And a person that I like to go and visit with, there's a lot of you, and everyone's always been so gracious there. But there's a writing teacher, a 7th grade writing teacher, and her name is Miss Venita Mason Castleberry. She is just, I love her. Anytime I go to her room, she welcomes me in. She's always teaching. The students are always busy, and she's just always so happy and willing to share anything so that I can maybe go and take it and share with someone else. So thank you, Miss Castleberry, for that. So a big shout out to Dangerfield Junior High School with Miss Billingsley as the principal and Miss Pegues as our greeter, Mr. Darden and Miss Mason Castleberry. Appreciate you so very much. Now, yesterday, we are reading, of course, Matilda. Matilda is written by Roald Dahl and illustrated by Quentin Blake. We are going to read chapters 18, 19, and 20 today. 3 chapters. Well, 18 and 19 are really short, and so I thought, well, I'm going to squeeze 20 in. And then the last chapter is 21. So we will only have one more chapter. It's amazing. I'm so excited. But before we begin, let's think about yesterday when we read. Oh my goodness. Remember, Matilda went to Miss Honey's cottage, and Miss Honey told her, she told her everything, didn't she? Well, maybe not everything, but she told her enough. Who was her aunt? Miss Trunchbull. Can you believe it? I could not believe it. Miss Trunchbull. Well, today's chapter is entitled The Names. I'm not sure what that chapter means as of yet. I don't even know what to infer unless she has some more names she's going to tell us. But anyway, I do have a vocabulary word that I want to share with you, and it is snippet. If something is snippet, it's a small piece of something. Maybe you overheard a conversation and you only gathered a small portion of that. That was a little snippet of it. Okay? You'll see that in this next chapter, and it's entitled The Names. Here we go. Miss Trunchbull! Matilda cried, jumping about a foot in the air. You mean she is your aunt? She brought you up? Yes, Miss Honey said. Oh, no wonder you were terrified, Matilda cried. Oh, the other day we saw her grab a girl by the pigtails and she threw her over the playground fence. Oh, you haven't seen anything, Miss Honey said. After my father died, When I was 5.5 years old, she used to make me bathe by myself all alone. And if she came up and she thought that I had not even washed properly, well, she would push my head under the water and hold it there. But don't get me started on what else. Don't get me started on what else she used to do. Oh, that won't help us at all. No, Matilda said, it won't. Oh, we came here, Miss Honey said, to talk about you, and I've just been talking about nothing but myself the whole time, and I feel like a fool. I am much more interested in just how much you can do with those amazing eyes of yours. I can move things. Matilda said, I know I can. I can push things over. Oh, how would you like it, Miss Honey said, if you made me some very cautious experiments to see just how much that you can move and push? Quite surprisingly, Matilda said, well, if you don't mind, Miss Honey, I think that I would rather not. I want to go home now, and I think that I need to think about all the things that I've heard this afternoon. Miss Honey stood up at once. Well, of course, she said, I have kept you here far too long, and your mother will start to be worrying. Oh, she never does that, Matilda said, smiling, but I would like to go home now, please, if you don't mind. Come along, then. Miss Honey said, I'm so sorry. I gave you such a rotten tea. Oh, you didn't at all. Matilda said, I loved it. The two of them walked all the way to Matilda's home in complete silence. Miss Honey said that Matilda wanted it that way. The child seemed so lost in thought that she hardly looked where she was walking. And when they searched and reached the gate of Matilda's home, Miss Honey said, you'd better forget everything that I told you this afternoon. Well, I won't promise to do that, Matilda said, but I will promise not to talk about it to anyone anymore, not even to you. Well, I think that would be very wise, Matilda said. Miss Honey said, well, I won't promise to stop thinking about it, though, Miss Honey. Matilda said, I'm thinking it all the way home back here from the cottage, and I believe that I've come up with just a tiny little bit of an idea. Oh, you mustn't, Miss Honey said. Please forget it, please. Well, I would like to ask you just three little things before I stop talking about it, Miss Matilda said. Please, will you just answer them for me, Miss Honey? Well, Miss Honey smiled. It was extraordinary that she told herself how this little snipper of a girl seemed suddenly to be taking charge of her problems, and with such authority, too. Well, she said, that depends on what the questions are. Well, the first thing is, Matilda said, what did Miss Trunchbull call your father when they were around at the house? I'm sure she called him Magnus, Miss Honey said. Well, that was his first name, Magnus. And what did your father call Miss Trunchbull? Well, her name is Agatha, Miss Honey said, and that's what he would have called her. He would have called Miss Trunchbull Agatha. And lastly, Matilda said, why did your father and Miss Trunchbull call you around the house? They called me Jenny, Miss Honey said, and Matilda pondered those answers very carefully. Now, let me make sure I've got this right, okay? In the house at home, your father was Magnus, Miss Trunchbull was Agatha, and you were Jenny. Am I right? That's correct, Miss Honey said. Oh, thank you, Matilda said. And now I won't mention this subject to you anymore, I promise, ever. Miss Honey wondered what on earth was going on in that mind of that child. Don't do anything silly, please. Matilda laughed, and she turned away, and she ran up the front of the path door, calling out as she went, goodbye, Miss Honey. Thank you so much for the tea. And that's the end of chapter 18. Told you it's very quick. And I dropped. You'll have to excuse me because I dropped the word. I got to go away for just a moment. I dropped the word in chapter 19. Okay, so Matilda didn't even want to practice her powers, did she, in this chapter? And Miss Honey was very surprised that she wanted to go home, but she had to absorb everything that she had heard. Matilda's little mind was like a sponge soaking up water. So she just wanted to go home so she could think about this. And even on the way home, she was thinking the whole way, wasn't she? Well, the next chapter is entitled The Practice. What do you think that's about, the practice? Maybe Matilda's going to practice her powers? Maybe she wanted to do it in private? I don't know. I do have a word for you, though. And this word is colossal. Colossal is something that is extremely large. Colossal. You'll see that in this chapter. Okay. Now, 18 was short, and Ms. Hammond said that 19 is short, and I hope I don't go. In fact, I'm going to take my vocabulary words from 20 out so that we don't drop those on the floor, and I have to go away, and then my hair just flies up everywhere. The practice. Matilda found the house empty as usual, and her father was not yet back home from work, and her mother was not anywhere that she could see. And she went straight into the living room and opened the drawer of the sideboard where she knew that her father kept a box of cigars. She took one out and carried it up to her bedroom, shut herself in. A cigar? Now, for the practice, she told herself, it's going to be tough, but I'm determined to do it. Her plan for helping Miss Honey was beginning to form beautifully in her mind. She had it now in almost every detail, but in the end, it all depended upon her being able to do one very special thing with her eye power. She knew that she wouldn't manage it right away, but she felt fairly confident with a great deal of practice and effort that she would be able to succeed in the end. The cigar was essential. It was perhaps a bit thicker than she would have liked, but the weight was just about right. It was about it would be fine for practicing with. I have no idea. She wants a cigar. Does anyone have an idea about that? I'm blank right now. I'm going to read some more. There was a small dressing table in Matilda's bedroom with her hairbrush and her comb on it and 2 library books, and she cleared those things away to set aside and laid down the cigar in the middle of the dressing table. Then she walked away and sat on the end of her bed, and she was now about 10 feet from the cigar. Here's a picture of her dressing table, and she has that big fat cigar on her dressing table, and she's moved her other items over on a stool, it looks like, her books and her brush and her comb, and she's placed the cigar in the center. Now, she settled herself and she began to concentrate very quickly. This time, she felt the electricity beginning to flow inside of her head, gathering behind her eyes, and the eyes became hot, and millions of tiny little invisible hands began pushing out little sparks toward the cigar. "Oh, move," she whispered. And to her intense surprise, almost at once the cigar, with its little red and gold paper band around it, its middle rolled away across the top of the dressing table, fell onto the carpet. So it moved. Matilda had enjoyed that. It was lovely doing it. Oh, it had just felt as though sparks were going around and around inside of her head and flashing out of her eyes. Oh, it had given her a sense of power that was almost just unreal. And how quick it had been this time, how simple. It happened very quickly. She crossed the bedroom and picked up the cigar and put it back on the table. Now for the difficult one, she thought, but if I have the power to push, then surely I have the power to lift. It is vital. If I learn how to lift it, I must learn how to lift it right up into the air and keep it there. It is not a very heavy thing, a cigar. So she sat on the end of the bed and started again. It was such an easy down now to summon up the power behind her eyes. It was like pushing a trigger in the brain. Lift, she whispered. Lift. Well, there's Matilda sitting on her bed, and she's concentrating on trying to lift the cigar. Not just move it, but to lift it up. At first, the cigar started to roll away, but then Matilda concentrated fiercely. One end of it slowly lifted up about an inch off of the table. This is not a cigar. And with a colossal effort, she managed to hold it there for about 10 seconds. And then it fell back again. She gasped. I'm getting it. I'm starting to do it. Oh, I'm getting it. For the next hour, Matilda just kept practicing and practicing. At the end, well, she had managed by the sheer power of her eyes to lift that whole cigar clear off of the table. Just her eyes. About 6 inches into the air and hold it there for about a minute. Oh, then suddenly she was so exhausted she fell back on the bed and she went to sleep. This was how her mother and father had found her later in the evening. Asleep on her bed. She just passed out. What's the matter with you? The mother said, waking her up. Are you ill? Oh, gosh, Matilda, sitting up and looking around. No, I'm all right. I was just a bit tired, that's all. From then on, every day after school, then Matilda, she shut herself in her room and she practiced with the cigar, and soon it all began to come together by the most wonderful way. 6 days later, by the following Wednesday evening, she was able not only to lift the cigar up into the air, but also to move it around exactly as she wished. Oh, it was beautiful. I can do it, she cried. I really can do it. I can pick the cigar up with my eye power and push it and pull it in the air any way that I want to. All she had to do now was to put her great plan into action. And there's Matilda when she was asleep. She had just conked out. She'd used so much of her strength trying to focus on the cigar and raising it up. Oh, my goodness. That's the end of chapter 19. I told you those are 2 short chapters. Now, next chapter. We read about Miracle 1 and we've read about Miracle 2. Well, this is Miracle 3, the third miracle. What do you think is going to happen? I bet you that little Matilda has something she's going to do at school, don't you think? How do you think it's going to be involved? Who can we infer? Well, Miss Honey possibly, but Miss Trunchbull. Oh, I can't wait to read this. Before we do though, I have some words. I have the word impertinent. Impertinent means rude. Rude. Well, we don't want to be an impertinent person, do we? Halibut. Have you ever heard of a halibut? That's a marine fish. Halibut. Really good to eat, I think. I like halibut. I like red mackerel. Prostrate. Prostrate is lying stretched out on the ground, face down. I don't know. But those words we're going to see in chapter 20. This is the next to the last chapter, guys. The next to the last chapter. So here we go with chapter 20, the third miracle. I cannot wait. The next day was Thursday, and that, as the whole of Miss Honey's class knew. Now, what do we know that Thursdays were? That's the day what? Miss Trunchbull comes in. So, that was the day that we knew in which the headmistress would take charge of the first lesson after lunch. Look, they didn't like that, but she did it every Thursday. And this morning, Miss Honey said to them, 1 or 2 of you did not particularly enjoy the last occasion when the headmistress took the class, so let us all try to be especially careful and clever today, please. How are your ears, Eric, after your last encounter with Miss Trunchbull? She stretched them, Eric said. My mother, she said she's positive that they're bigger than they used to be. Well, and Rupert, Miss Honey said, I am glad to see that you didn't lose any of your hair after last Thursday. My head was jolly sore afterwards, River said. Oh. And you, Nigel, Miss Honey said, do please try not to be smart aleck with the headmistress, please. You were really quite cheeky to her last week. Like her, Nigel said. Try not to make it so obvious, okay, Miss Honey said. It doesn't pay. She's a very strong woman. She has muscles and steel ropes. I wish I was grown up, Nigel said. I'd knock her flat out. I doubt you would, Miss Honey said. No one has ever got the better of her yet. Well, what will we be testing on this afternoon? A small girl asked. Well, I'm almost certain that the 3 times tables, Miss Honey said, that's what that you were all meant to have learned this past week. Make sure that you know them. Lunch came and it went. And after lunch, the class resembled Miss Honey stood at one end of the side of the room, and they all sat silent, apprehensive, waiting. And then, like some giant of doom, an enormous Trunchbull strode into the room in her green breeches and her cotton smock. She went straight up to her jug of water and lifted it up by the handle and peered inside. Well, I'm glad, she said, that there's no slimy creature in my drinking water this time. If there had been, then something exceptionally unpleasant would have happened to every single member of this class, and that includes you, Miss Honey. The class remained silent and very tense. Oh, they had learned a bit about the tigress by now, and nobody was about to take any chances. Very well, boomed the Trunchbull. Let us see how well you know your 3 times tables. Oh, or to put it another way, let us see how badly Miss Honey has taught you your 3 times tables. Trunchbull was standing in front of the class. Her legs were apart and hands on her hips, scowling at Miss Honey, who stood silent on the other side. Matilda sitting motionless at her desk in the second row was watching very, very closely. Yeah! That Trunchbull shouted, pointing a finger to the side of a rolling pin at a boy called Wilford. Wilford was on the extreme right of the front room. Stand up, you, she shouted. Wilford stood up. Recite the 3 times tables backwards, the Trunchbull barked. Backwards? Stammered Wilford, but I haven't learned it backwards. There you are, cried the Trunchbull, triumphant. She's taught you nothing, Miss Honey. Why have you taught them absolutely nothing at all in the last week? Well, that is not true, headmistress. Miss Honey said they have all learned their 3 times tables, but I see no point in teaching it to them backwards. There is little point in teaching anything backwards. The whole object of life, headmistress, is to go forwards. And I venture to ask whether even you, for example, could spell a simple word like wrong backwards straight away. I very much doubt it. Don't you get impertinent with me, Miss Honey, the Trunchbull snapped. And then she turned back to the unfortunate Wilford. Very well, boy, she said. Answer me this. I have 7 apples, 7 oranges, and 7 bananas. How many pieces of fruit do I have altogether? Hurry up. Get on with it. Give me the answer. Well, that's adding up, Wilford cried. That isn't the 3 times tables. You blithering idiot, shouted the Trunchbull. You festering gumball. You flea-bitten fungus. This is the 3 times tables. You have 3 separate lots of fruit, and each lot has 7 pieces. 3 7s are 21. Now, can't you see that, you stagnant pool of filth? I'll give you one more chance. I have 8 coconuts, 8 monkeys' nuts, and 8 nutty little idiots like you. How many nuts do I have altogether? Answer me quickly. Poor Wilford was properly flustered. Why, he cried. Please, wait, I got to add up 8 coconuts and 8 monkey nuts. Oh, he started counting on his fingers. Let's see, 1, 2. You bursting blister, yelled the Trunchbull. You moth-eaten maggot. This is not adding up. This is multiplication. the difference between 8 3s and 3 8s? Oh, tell me that you make a little wuzzle and you look sharp about it. But now Wilford was far too frightened and bewildered even to speak. In 2 strides, the Trunchbull was beside him, and by some amazing gymnastic trick, it may have been judo or karate, she flipped that boy of Wilford's legs, the back of his legs, with one of her feet, so that the boy shot up off the ground and turned a somersault in the air. But halfway through the somersault, she caught him by an ankle and held him dangling upside down like a plucked chicken in a shop window. There she is, holding this poor little child, Wilford. Upside down, look how scared he is by one leg. 8 3s, the Trunchbull shouted, swinging Wilford from side to side by his ankle. 8 3s at the same as 3 8s, and 3 8s are 24. Repeat that. Exactly that moment, the gal at the other end of the room jumped to his feet and started pointing excitedly at the blackboard and screaming, "The chalk! The chalk! Look at that chalk! It's moving! Oh, all on its own!" Chalk? So hysterical and shrill was the gal's scream. "Ah, look!" And everyone in the whole place, including the Trunchbull, looked up at the blackboard, and there, sure enough, was a brand new piece of chalk, and it was hovering. It was hovering near the gray black writing surface of the blackboard. "It's writing something! It's writing something!" screamed the gal. "Oh, the chalk is writing something!" And indeed it was. "What the blazes is this?" yelled the Trunchbull. It had shaken her to see her own first name being written like that by an invisible hand. She dropped Wilford on the floor, and then she yelled at nobody in particular, "Who's doing this? Who's writing this?" Look, there's the chalkboard, and the chalk is actually writing her name, Agatha. Remember, that was Miss Trunchbull's first name. Is Matilda doing this? The chalk continued to write, "Agatha, this is Magnus." Who was Magnus? That was Miss Honey's father. "This is Magnus." Everyone in the place heard the gasp that came from the Trunchbull's throat. "No!" she cried. It can't be Magnus." "Agatha, this is Magnus. This is Magnus." She thinks a ghost is there. Miss Honey at the side of the room glanced swiftly at Matilda. The child was sitting very straight in her desk, and the head held high. The mouth compressed, the eyes glittering like 2 stars. And it says something else down here. "It is Magnus's, and you'd better believe it." It is Magnus, and you better believe it, not Magnus's. Oh, can't wait to turn the page. For some reason, everyone now looked at the Trunchbull, and the woman's face had turned white as snow, and her mouth was open and shining like a halibut. Out of water and giving out a series of strangled gasps. And Agatha says, "Give my Jenny back her house." The chalk stopped writing, and it hovered by for a few moments, and then suddenly it dropped to the floor with a tinkle and broke into pieces. It said, "Give me Jenny, my Jenny, back her wages. Give my Jenny the house, and then get out of here. If you don't, I will come and I will get you. I will come and get you like you got me. I am watching you, Agatha. I am watching you." Oh, Wilford who had managed to resume his seat in the front row, screamed, "Ah! Miss Trunchbull has fallen down! Miss Trunchbull is on the floor!" This was the most sensational bit of news of all, and the entire class jumped up and they ran over to their seats and they jumped out of their seats and they really looked good. And there she was, this huge figure of this headmistress stretched full length on the floor across, laid out for the count. Ooh, look at this picture. She is out. The teacher, Miss Honey, is there, and the children, they're just going, oh my goodness. Miss Honey ran forward and she knelt beside the prostrate giant. "She's fainted," she cried. She's out cold. "Someone go and fetch the matron at once." 3 children ran out of the room. Miguel, always ready for an action, leapt up and seized the big jug of water. "My father says cold water is the best way to wake up someone who's fainted," he said, and with that, he tipped the entire contents of the jug over Miss Trunchbull's head. No one, not even Miss Trunchbull, protested. As for Matilda, she continued to sit motionless at her desk. She was feeling curiously elated, and she felt as though she had touched something that was not quite of this world, the highest point in the heavens, the father of stars. She had felt most wonderfully the most power surging at behind of her eyes, gushing like a warm flood inside of her skull, and her eyes had become scorching hot, hotter than ever before, and things had come bursting out of her eye sockets, and then the piece of chalk had just lifted itself up and began to write. It seemed, though, that she had hardly done anything. Well, it had all been so simple. I mean, the school matron, followed by 5 teachers, 3 women and 2 men, they came rushing into the room. "Oh, by golly, somebody's floored her at last!" cried one of the men, grinning. "Congratulations, Miss Honey." "Who threw the water over her?" asked the matron. "I did," Miguel said proudly. "Good for you." Another teacher said, "Shall we get some more?" "Stop that," the matron said. "We must carry her up to the sick room." Oh, it took all 5 of those teachers and the matrons to lift that enormous woman and stagger with her out of the room. Whew. Miss Honey said to the class, "I think that you'd all better go out to the playground and amuse yourselves until the next lesson." Then she turned and she walked over to the blackboard and carefully wiped out all the chalk writing. The children began filing out of the classroom, and Matilda started to go out with them, but as she passed Miss Honey, her twinkling eyes met the teacher's eyes, and Miss Honey ran forward and she gave tiny little child a great big hug and a kiss. She was so proud of Matilda. Can you believe that? Matilda, she made that chalk. She made that chalk fly in the air, and it wrote on the chalkboard just what she wanted it to do. She had this little plan in her little wonderful, fabulous brain. She pulled it off. Oh, that was so cool. Now Miss Trunchbull's in the nurse's station. Well, I'm telling you, what in the world could happen next? This next chapter says a new home. New home? Well, let's think. What could we infer would happen? Okay, now we know that Miss Honey told Matilda what? That the Trunchbull had taken her family's house and had lived there, and Miss Trunchbull had to live in that little cottage. So it says a new home. Would that mean like the Trunchbull has a new home, or she may have a new home? It's probably not there. Or maybe Miss Honey does. Maybe Matilda does. Oh, I don't know. But tomorrow we're going to read A New Home, our very last chapter in this wonderful book written by Roald Dahl, Matilda. Then we're going to go over the summarization of the book, and try to help you so that you may take the test and be successful and earn 6 AR points with this. Can't wait for the last chapter. I just want to leave you on a cliffhanger. What does a cliffhanger mean? You're hanging off of a cliff. You're dangling there. You don't quite know what's going to happen, and you just can't wait to get off of that cliff. I'm leaving you with it. Until tomorrow, have a great evening. Thank you so much. Bye.